Hi, you've reached the Talking Racewalking podcast. It's all about racewalking, of course. It's talking to racewalkers from around the world about racewalking. Join me, Noel Payne, a amateur racewalker in Canada, as I talk to elites, Olympians, record holders, masters walkers, and anybody who's out walking as fast as they can. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Talking Racewalking. I've gone down south of the border again, and I've got Bruce Cox here with me, who I sort of met via the social media, and I got to see another person learn to racewalk, and I wanted to chat to him about his experiences. Welcome, Bruce.
Oh, it's my pleasure indeed. It's an honor to be here.
I love the accent. I probably sound like maybe I have an accent, but I've got the Canadian accent. Well, I can hear that. Now, are you in Virginia? You know, you're in a hotel room now in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I'm from West Virginia, but right now I'm in a hotel in Cincinnati, traveling with my daughter.
Your daughter, and you got a couple grandkids kicking around there in the room here, I hear.
There's one kicking around right now. We're taking him to Cincinnati Children's Hospital tomorrow morning for another checkup.
Okay, excellent. So if we hear any noise, we know where it's coming from, but I know you got a busy room, so we won't hold you up too long, but I'm honored to have you to come onto the podcast and talk about your experiences with race walking. So I'm gonna tell folks about what I know of the person I've seen on Facebook and everything else, learning to race walk, and then perhaps I'll ask you some questions. You can fill in the blanks for me. What I know is
Sounds great.
what I know is that you started off, I guess, as a runner and a track and field cross country coach. And then more recently, I guess in your master's years, you've stumbled across race walking. So first of all, why don't you tell me about what your sort of athletics background is? Because I saw some great running photos, I think, as I watched you on Facebook. So tell me, how did you start?
Well, actually, I really started in college. I went to college on a wrestling scholarship. And during that first fall, the wrestling team trained with cross country just for fitness. And I liked it. And I never wrestled one time in college. Fell in love with running, and had a really good small collegiate career. In fact, I was just recently inducted into my college's Hall of Fame as a runner.
Nice.
And so, it was I'm a small town boy. Went to a small high school in West Virginia. And so it was kind of like, a small town boy does good, or whatever, however you want to look at it. And then so I just, after college, I went to graduate school, and I was around a really good coach in graduate school. And I actually improved even more. Was low 14, 5,000 meter runner in graduate school. And, in undergraduate, I was more of a middle distance guy. I was like a 153, 800 meter guy. And so I, just kept running after that. After graduate school, I became a road runner, like many of us do. We got to hit the roads. There's nothing else. And back during those days, we didn't have all these track meets floating around. So road racing became the thing. I road raced probably for over 30 years. And back in 2014, I culminated that career with a 12-hour trail run, and it was brutal. And it truly was. I was training. I was 62 then, and I was training 70 or 80 miles a week. And I know you guys are all about the kilometers and stuff, but we're all about miles down here. But I was training pretty heavy. And I did the 12-hour run, and I was pretty pleased with it. I did stop at 35 miles, but it was less than 12 hours. It was just too much for me, I think.
Yep.
And I ended up breaking down. And so in 2014, after all those years as an adult running, I just stopped for a while. I really didn't have anything else to prove. I did my first and last ultra. I don't think I'll go back to do another one, especially since I found race walking. And maybe I'll do a 50K or something, race walking thing, if they ever bring that back.
Exactly.
But it was after the injuries, at that same point in time in my life, was when I was in the insurance business and I was dabbling in coaching. And in 2014, as a matter of fact, I'd been coaching for a few years, but in 2014, I was offered a job at an NAI school. And of course, most race walkers know what that means. We can have race walkers. And so that's really how I found race walking. It was really purely by accident.
Oh, I think that's a common story, stumbling across race walking. And first I want to go back to the fact that you're a very accomplished runner. I mean, I think all runners tend to look ahead as opposed to back. So if you're a 16-minute 5K runner, you think you're slow because there's people running 15 or 14. If you're running 15 minutes, you think everybody's running 14 or 13. And so I think that's the way. But honestly, a 14-minute 5K and 153 in the 800 meters, there's a lot of people that would probably saw off both their legs and sell them to run those times. So that's very impressive. And I can relate to sort of finding race walking later myself, very, very similar. So, and lucky to stumble across a school you were. So when you stumbled across race walking, what drew you to it? I mean, as opposed to just going out and continuing to do a few runs here and there for fitness, what interested you about race walking?
It was really, I'll just tell you the story. It was kind of simple. I was hired at this school, WVU Tech, that's in Beckley, West Virginia. And I was hired at this school to revitalize their cross country program and to start a track and field program. And so the first year we just did cross country. As we started to announce we're going to have track and field and that sort of thing. So in the fall of 2015, we announced that we were going to start track and field. And we even put up posters around the school in case there was anybody on campus who was interested in that sort of thing. Lo and behold, in December of 2015, a young man who was a JV goalie on our soccer program at WVU Tech walks into our office and he says, "By the way, I was a race walker back home." Excuse me, but I'm thinking, what in the world am I going to do with a race walker? And so, but anyhow, he walked in, we sat down, I knew absolutely nothing about race walking at all. And he was telling us some of his times as a junior race walker, and back home was Australia.
Oh, excellent. And he was strong program there.
But he was also like a level 2 race walking coach. So we had a built-in guy that we didn't know whether he was any good or not. And as it turns out, we looked up his times and we were thinking, okay, last year that would have been All-American. And that was when he was a junior.
Wow.
Now he hadn't race walked for 2 years because he was a soccer goalie. And so we were getting ready to start that spring. So we didn't do anything that indoor season. If we would have realized what we had with Luke Jobson, if we would have realized what we had with Luke, we probably would have had an indoor season because he would have been an 8-time All-American. He ended up being a 7-time All-American. And so wow. the the very first track meet we go to was in probably late March of 2016. We go to a track meet, and before the meet, I told Luke, if this turns out as good as I hope it can, after watching him train in our system, and we were training him the same way we do distant runners. Hey, guess what? Lo and behold, it's the same thing. We didn't know, but it turned out to be about the same thing. And so we were training him this way, and then he goes out, and not only was a race walks a PR, but at that particular time early in the year, of course, but he had the second fastest time in the NAI. And so I told Luke that day in March of 2016 that I would do everything in my power to build a race walking squad at WVU Tech. And I've had tremendous success over the years from year 2000 up until that 2014 in recruiting and convincing athletes that we could do for them what maybe others couldn't or couldn't do, or at least the same thing that they do. We're a small college, but I'm going to take the 22-minute female athlete and turn her into an 18, and where Division I is going to take the 18 and turn them into a 15. Same thing. And so Luke, I said, we're going to do everything we can. So I immediately, when we got back home from that meet, I started researching. Where do I go? And so, no, I probably liked and joined every international race walking Facebook page that's in existence. Everyone that I could find. I mean, all over the world. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to do this. And of course, we had an All-American. We had an All-American who had a 30-second PR after a 2-year layoff and only training with us for about 16 weeks. And so that really gave us something to say. Now, and you couple that with success that both Jeremy Bloom was my assistant coach, and he and I both have a Arthur Lydiard type training philosophy of high mileage and all that sort of thing. And so we were a perfect match for each other. And so we started doing some more research and digging up and how we're going to train these guys, and started putting together a program. Coach Bloom was putting together the program. And then while at the same time I was trying to research around the world to find out where I could find some more people. And so obviously, us being in the States, we garnered some immediate attention from the state schools. And a young man by the name of Stephen Smith. Stephen was a national junior champion out of Maine. Stephen, we got in touch with Stephen. We were talking about our success. Lo and behold, we also had his major. And WVU Tech is a very engineering-driven school, and he was interested in engineering, computer engineering, actually. And so that worked out good. Our engineering program is one of the top 20 programs in the United States, even though we're a small school. And so that worked out good. And as you know, there's probably only half a dozen, no more than a dozen schools around the country and Canada that really, really support race walking.
Yeah, that's
and
completely.
So we were.
I just wanted to say too, with all this, you discovering race walking through somebody basically walking through your door, having some experience and being a decent race walker. How much did you know about race walking before? And what did you think when you actually saw race walking firsthand? What were your thoughts? What did you think of it?
Well, our first thoughts for what are we going to do with this guy? I mean, that really was our first thought. Jeremy Bloom was sitting in the office. Coach Bloom was sitting there with me when Luke walks in. I had just hired Coach Bloom just a few weeks prior to that. And so we were just sitting there with this guy like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, there's a young man by the name of Michael Roll, and his wife is Michelle Roll. They're both race walkers. She was an Olympic trials qualifier for the USA, and he was also a decent race walker. Well, he's the cross country coach at Mansfield University. So while Luke was sitting there, Noel, I called up Mike and I said, Mike, Bruce Cox down in West Virginia. Hey, Bruce, what's going on? One of those kind of things. What in the world do we do with a race walker? And we're all laughing, including.
Had you in your personal experiences, what did you know about race walking? Really, had you seen
zero?
I'd
seen it as an Olympic sport, and in all honesty, I probably thought it was kind of comical.
Yep.
Like most people do. Look at those swinging hips. I mean, now I knew they were going fast, and I was impressed because I'm impressed with anybody that's a good athlete. So it was impressive to me that they're going 6 and 7 minutes a mile and going 50 kilometers. But it still was kind of comical to me. It wasn't anything that I had any interest in at all. And then so after we talked with Mike, and Mike said, what do we do for a training program? I said, no, Bruce, you are already an accomplished coach and distance athletes. Do the same thing. Figure out how many days a week Luke wants to walk. The more, the better. But also, if he wants to run, then he can run a couple of days a week and walk the rest. But if he likes just walking, let him walk all 7 days a week or 5 days a week or whatever you're doing with your training program. And so that's how we discovered it. And so I thought, hey, this is pretty.
That's amazing. It seems like everybody sort of stumbles across things. So now tell me where it got to the point after, seeing this athlete, helping him, progressing with him, enabling him to do some great stuff. How did you start going out and trying racing? What was the catalyst that got you to try it?
It probably wasn't until after I retired from coaching. So we'd already had 5 All-Americans, a couple that we actually developed on our own that weren't race walkers when they came. Of course, we recruited some good ones. But one that came from the state of Washington, Dan Nenova. Dan is currently the second ranked race walker in the USA. I think he's like 38th in the world or whatever. and Dan is still walking. But it was during that time that I was retiring, and I hurt myself right after that 2014 race.
Yep.
And I really hadn't run. Now I had ran my whole life, so I'm this 155, 160 pound guy, and all of a sudden I looked around, and I'm 220,
Yep. Yep.
and I'm retired. And so now what am I going to do? So my first thought was I'm going to get back in shape as a runner. My first thought.
Yep.
But I thought, hey, around these race walkers, let me go out and I'll start walking first, and then I'll get in shape, and then I'll start running again. And I thought, well, let me see if I can do this hip thing and knee straight thing and all that type of stuff. And the very first video, I think you may have seen it, but the very first video I ever did, I sent it to those guys. And of course, we had a little, group chat, and they were all laughing at me. Yeah, we told you it was harder than what you thought, harder than it looks and all. And I said, okay, challenge is on. They were making fun of me, jokingly, of course.
Yep.
They were making fun of me. I said, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be good at it. I said, I'm going to figure it out. I'm here all by myself in West Virginia, but I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to make this happen. And then I started posting things on introduction to race walking and all the places that you've seen them.
Yep.
And I ended up being that was my go-to place. And then after I found some generous people like yourself, then I had some personal conversations. But I had all the contacts. Because of all my recruiting contacts, I knew who Ian Watley was, and I knew who, Dave Montgomery. I knew all those people. I knew who they all were. We had communications together. Like Dave, for the very first time Dave responded to me, I said, hey, this is really great. And Dave's response back was, all that you did for race walking is the least we can do in return. Great answer.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great answer. And so then I thought, okay, I can do this. And it was probably 6 or 8 weeks after I got started that I started saying, I might be able to do this. It took me longer than I thought to really kind of figure out all the hip swing and arm motion and, all those kind of things. And I'm still, I say this all the time, I am still a work in progress. And there's no doubt in my mind that, I was just talking with Jeremy Bloom, and I have continued. He's retired too. And we talk every day. And I'm just now to the point where, I'm starting to get my fitness back. I think I could have gotten fit faster if I was running, but it's now coming back. No, I just told Jeremy today, I said, I don't even think I'm close yet, fitness wise, to where I think I can still get. And it's kind of scary. It's kind of scary to think that, and he says, now, if you go to the Nationals again, which of course I'm going to someday, probably this March I will, but I'm not. Last year I went, and I was in it partly for the experience. I mean, my first official race walk was at the USATF Nationals. That was my first walk.
That's cool.
And to this day, that's still my only official race walk. I've never needed that. I've never needed that for motivation. It motivates me, but I don't need motivation to get out the door every day.
Exactly. And for folks that can't see, we're talking. I get to see Bruce in video here as we record the audio. But I mean, I won't tell you his age, but he's not a youngster, so he's got grandkids. So, like I say, he's an accomplished runner. So you're tackling race walking in your master's years as well. Did you find it intimidating to go out there in a new sport? How was it?
Well, just like I'm sure a lot of people, like when our race walkers all came to Beckley, West Virginia, the first thing I want to know are there other race walkers, because they look kind of silly. And now I'm that silly guy, and there's some power walkers around my area, but not where I live. But there are some reasonably close. But I don't get together. I've always been a loner kind of person, training wise. I like to do my own thing. And, I've developed my training program to accommodate, Bruce Cox, not Luke Jobson or anybody else. That's been it's been what works for me.
Yeah.
What works for me might not be the same thing that I would do for Dan Nineveh, or, what Luke Jobson, what Jeremy Bloom would do for Dan Nineveh. I mean, Bloom became the go-to coach who really put together the nuts and bolts of our training program, but we did it together. And that was fun. But challenging. I'm not ashamed of my age. I started this last June, not this past June, but 18 months ago. And it was actually the end of May the 25th, I think, was the first day I created my comical video. And I was 69 years old. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm getting ready for age 70. I'm going to be ready. I know how this Masters things work. You know, every 5 years you get to be young again. And so I was going to be young at age 70. And originally my goal was to train for the 800 meters. That was my original plan. I was going to be, you know, back in 2005 or 2006, I was ranked in the top 10 in my age group in the country in 800 meters. And I was going to go back to that. And now, you know, what's really funny about this is I've taken on the challenge that no, I have not run one step since I started racing.
So are you having the, I guess it's not a midlife crisis probably for either one of us, but are you having that runner race walker crisis that I had where I used to always say that I was a runner. I mean, I ran for, well, I'd still run now, but basically I had that point where I was either not running very much or not running at all and race walking. And I always called myself a runner. So do you call yourself a runner now or a race walker?
Oh no, I'm a race walk newbie. I'm a race walk newbie.
Well, you're a newbie, but I think from what I've seen, you'll have to start labeling yourself something different. I've watched Bruce on social media going from someone very stiff-legged, you know, really trying to learn the whole straight leg and what to do with the hips. And I've seen you on the treadmill, I've seen you on the road, and you're really picking up the technique. I've seen things get so much smoother. So I think pretty soon you're going to be not a newbie and you'll be helping other people learn. So it looks good from what I see.
Thank you, Noah. And you know, I've already had helped some people. It's funny because, you know, some of the people on Introduction to Race Walking reached out to me privately. They're not as public as me. I could care less what you guys think about me. I don't even know you guys. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't, and I know, you know, I was never afraid to put it out there. And I want, you know, blunt truthfulness. You know, Jeff Savage is the bluntest guy there is out there. And like, he does this little angle thing, you know, this little program he has. And the other day I'm thinking, okay, I got it now. And he sent it to me. That's only at, you know, you're only at 178 instead of 180. You know, oh my God, I'm 178, but I got to get 180. You know, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for Jeff. And so, you know, when I was at Nationals last year, I got one red card, and I know that person was texting Jeff. I'm just kidding. I got one red card and one yellow, and it was from the same guy.
That's funny. Well, and for folks that are listening here, and if you're listening from somewhere that's not Canada or United States, let me tell you these names too. Go search them up on Google. Go especially search them up on YouTube. We've got Ian Watley, Jeff Salvage, and Dave McGovern. All really great experts in race walking, have a lot of race walking experience themselves, and then share it. Racewalking.com, racewalk.com, and racewalking.org. Great resources. Whether you're, you know, in Canada, United States, or elsewhere, a lot of good info there. And these guys have helped a lot of people.
Yeah, you know, we have to mention Noel's book here too. And Noel's book. No, and this isn't really a plug for Noel, but Noel's book, all the resources that I found over my years, Noel had every single one of those resources in his book. So, you know, I'll let Noel plug that himself, but you know, you can find it out there, and it's every single one, all the resources that I went to, you know, including, you know, Carmen and all her and Reshod shoes and everything else, you know, all of that is out there. And it's all mentioned in Noel's book. So, you know, what I told Noel when I read the book, I bought it when it first came out. I read it right away. And, you know, it's a book it's a tremendous resource to have on your shelf if you're looking for, you know, where do I go? Who do I find? I was just lucky and blessed that so many of those same names I had already made contact with.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of wrote it for those folks like ourselves that sort of, you might know some people, but often those race walkers, we're always training on our own. We're the weird race walker in the community and often have to sort of figure out things on our own. So I'm glad you appreciate it. Bruce, this podcast is coming to a tail end here, and I want to finish it off with an interesting question. So I think what I'll do is, from the perspective of someone who went from running to race walking, perhaps even as a master's race walker. What's one piece of advice you could pass on to somebody who's, say, trying to race walk? What would you tell them?
Boy, I'm going to tell him to read Noel's book.
I didn't pay him for that, folks. I didn't pay him for that.
No, he didn't. Noel is not paying me for that advertisement. That is the total truth. It's only because the resources are there. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, as funny as it might be. And you never know where the response is going to come. Respect those responses. I don't get back. I don't ask for fitness advice. I'm not looking for fitness advice. I'm happy with my own fitness training program. My family first is how I phrase it. It's all about family first for me. I train no more than 5 days a week because I spend time with my family. And that is the number one thing. But if they're looking for technical advice, how to race walk, put yourself out there. Introduction to Race Walking is a tremendous Facebook page to post on or to find contacts with people. Great advice. Noel's book has all of it in there.
Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate that. And I'll also emphasize the fact that he said really to get out there and do it as well. I think for a lot of folks that don't know many race walkers in their community or whatever, it does take a little bit of courage. Maybe, that's when you're worried about how you're going to look. But honestly, like Bruce says, get out there and try it. Get out there and do it. Don't worry about what people are going to say. And if my book helps you and all those websites, go there as well. It'll give you some confidence to get out there and learn it. Thanks again, Bruce. I'll continue to watch you learn.
One thing.
For sure.
All my 70-year-old master friends out there, I'm no longer there for the experience. I'm in it to win it.
I love it. Thanks, Bruce, for everything. And we'll talk to you soon. We'll catch up when you're after your next big race.
All right, Noel. Good talking to you.
Hi, so this is a section where I'd actually be talking to someone, a race walker. So this is where you can come in. If you know a race walker, you're a race walker, and you have an amazing story, I want to hear from you. So reach out, let's chat, let's get walking and talking. Thank you for listening to another episode of Talking Race Walking. We've got our first sponsor on board, so thank you to Reshod Walking Shoes for sponsoring this episode and continuing episodes of Talking Race Walking. Reshod Walking Shoes are designed to keep you moving. Find them at reshod.com. Racewalk shoes designed by Carmen Jakinski from the United States, a race walker and racewalk coach.